Hello and welcome to Music Worth Buying. My name is Robert Kinsler and I'm a music writer and a musician.
My name's TJR and I'm a musician and a music writer.
Now this week we're doing something a little bit different than we normally do. We're going to focus in on a theme that we're going to talk about, a topic of discussion, and basically we're going to address the whole thing, are albums today too long?
Yes, and my personal opinion is they are. Start making your albums shorter. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everybody. Great show. Hey, that was good.
That was good.
That's short and sweet. Okay, let's really talk about this a little bit more seriously. Now, when we talk about this subject, we have to, of course, realize there's modern day albums from the CD era onward, and then albums from the vinyl period onward. And you have to look at this. During the vinyl period, which you and I both grew up in,
right?
You know, when that was the dominant format, the vinyl record could only hold about roughly 35, 45 minutes, maybe tops, maybe 45 minutes tops, you know. And so a CD, of course, can hold a lot more, an awful lot more, about an hour and a half,
right?
If you want, roughly, maybe even more. What was a double album like Elton John's Yellow Brick Road, when you had like a huge just outpouring of creativity, you might do an album like that, where it was a double vinyl album. And that would have been the length of the average what the average CD is now.
Right.
And Goodbye Yellow Brick Road will fit on a CD, a single CD, you know. So that gives you an idea of that.
That's pretty amazing.
So because of the limitations of the technology of vinyl, you were forced to choose your best songs. You probably had a lot of songs that you recorded in the studio when you were working on the album, but you were forced to, well, you've only got so much room. So you got to really choose the very best ones. And it forced you to be particular about it. Once the CD came along, suddenly you realized, oh, I've got a lot more room. I can get these other songs on this album if I want to. And I remembered when CDs first started happening, albums started getting longer, and I thought to myself, you know, just because you can make an album longer doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I think what started happening is we started getting albums that had an extraneous amount of tracks that you just didn't need.
Right.
Because you could. And a recent example, Aerosmith's last album, Music from Another Dimension, was 15 tracks. And I said in my review, 9 of the tracks out of those 15 were stellar. And I said, if you just got rid of those other tracks, you would have had this album, in my opinion, that would have stood right up there with classics like Toys in the Attic.
Wow.
You know, those other tracks, I feel like it brought it down. And when I after I listened to the album numerous times for my review and listened to every track, when it was time for me to just now enjoy the album from after the review is done and enjoy the album for the rest of my life, I simply omitted those tracks. And to me, it's a great sounding album now without those extra tracks. Another good recent example is we talked about in a previous show about Shelby Lynn's EP, Thanks. That Stone Temple Pilots EP. The Stone Temple Pilots EP was a smart idea because they were just getting started with a new lead singer. You know, don't go for a full-length album. Just give us a little something to get us started with this new singer if they're going to continue.
Right.
And with this Shelby Lynn album, it makes you want more. And I think now that we're in a digital world, where you know, while we still like physical albums, some people don't even want to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, they
I
don't.
think there's something to be said for a lot of artists. I think it could help a lot of artists' careers if instead of waiting this huge gap of time
between
to release
albums,
an album, a full-length album of 15 tracks that's an hour and a half long or an hour and 25, whatever, you know, an hour and 15 minutes or however long it's going to be. Instead, you might release things in shorter spurt, in quicker, you know, less time between. But maybe you can release more singles first of all.
Right.
Just more singles.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I thought, at least up until people started this idea about, hey, we have a few songs, let's just put them out digitally. I think the problem was because, like, you think about a band like the Beatles, they were releasing an album or two every year, and they were great.
And singles in between.
Right, and singles in between. Or CCR, every 6 months they were issuing another classic.
Yeah.
The Doors were together, 4.5 years, and they put out 6 amazing albums. But like you said, the albums were relatively short.
Yes.
Today, bands wait 3-4 years to issue an album. Like U2, you get an album every 5 years or something. And so as a result, they feel probably, like you said, some pressure to fill that CD with songs because it takes so long, and that's unfortunate. I agree with you. I'd rather them, when they have a great song, hey, we're excited about it, let's put it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Have some singles that are only as the singles, then give us some albums. And I think once again, I would rather hear 8 or 9. I would rather hear 8 or 9 great tracks. Hear a 35-minute album that is where every track is just stellar, than hear an album that's an hour, to an hour and a half, where there's some tracks that really don't need to be there.
Right.
And I think the trick is, part of it is when you are the artist, you think everything you're coming up with is great. And you need someone to say, those tracks aren't as spectacular. You really need that. When you had the limitation of vinyl, you were forced to decide, well, what really are the best tracks? And those tracks that were less than stellar, those usually ended up being the B-sides to the singles that were released off that album in many cases.
And they don't really do that now.
Sometimes those B-sides were good. Sometimes they were like, they're fine. They're okay, but not great. And then again, like you said, like the Beatles, they would just release singles in between the albums. And I think that less, especially now in today's world, digital world, where attention spans are limited. And I don't say this as pejoratively, just to say, well, it's those young kids, they don't got any attention like we folks, like us older folks do. No, I mean, I'm the same way now. All these distractions from the internet, YouTube, Blu-rays, DVDs, Apple Television, Netflix. There is just a lot of stuff coming at us nowadays, a lot of choices that we didn't have before. I've got Spotify on my phone. I can dial up pretty much the entire musical universe, by and large.
Pretty amazing.
There's a lot out there, and I think attention spans are shorter now. So I think going back to shorter formats, putting out an album that is only 30 minutes long, 35 minutes long, nothing wrong with that. I think that's going to just be a lot easier for people to digest nowadays. Come out with just a single. Come out with just an EP of 4 to 5 tracks, And you don't have to release it physically necessarily. If it's just the EP or the single, you can just release it digitally. I'm doing that myself on my, through my own website. I'm not releasing CDs anymore, physical CDs, because it's just not financially viable at this moment in time for me. I'm releasing digital singles, and I intend to release some digital EPs, and even when I did release physical CDs, people said, "Yeah, your albums are kind of shorter than other CDs." I said, "Well, because I only want the best songs on it." Yeah. And there are songs I just decided I'm not going to put them there for the sake of putting them there.
Right. Yeah. Not just to pad something.
Not just to pad it out. And I remember when I wrote that review for the Aerosmith album, when I did that one on YouTube, the solo review, someone said, "Well, there's nothing wrong with giving your audiences more for their money by giving us extra tracks." And once again, my feeling is not if those tracks don't measure up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're going to suffer as an artist by not issuing the best and the best material out there.
Yeah. So I just think that, especially now that we're in a digital world, that I think it's better for the artist. I think it's less time in between releases, and that's going to keep your fans more engaged. So I really do offer this as advice to other music artists out there, both large and small. Keep your fans more engaged by just having more frequent releases, just shorter releases, and realize that attention spans aren't what they once were, and maybe you need someone to just say, "These are your best tracks. Go with that."
That'd be good advice. Really. Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I think there was just a misstep we took with CDs, that because we could make albums longer, that we just should.
Yeah.
And if you look at this whole classic era of the album rock era, from the 60s through the 70s, before the CD, the advent of the CD, albums were shorter. And nobody complains about those Doors albums, those Beatles albums. Right. The CCR albums.
Yeah, right.
No one complains, "Hey, why is this at least an hour long?"
Yeah.
Nobody's complaining about it. So there's the food for thought.
Every note counts on those albums.
Yeah, every note counts. Every song counts. And so anyways, so tell us, what do you think? Do you think I'm full of crap on this, huh? No, seriously. Do you think? What do you think? Do you feel albums are too long? Do you think they should be shorter? I mean, albums should be as long, I guess, at the end of the day, as they need to be.
Right. Yeah.
If you have an outpouring of creativity, of great material, like when Elton John did Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, it warranted a double vinyl album.
One recent album that really blew me away, and it was a deluxe edition of Mark Knopfler's Privateering, which I think actually the deluxe edition, it might even be 3 discs, and it's just there's not not anything on there that I want to fast forward through.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that is an exception to have something that long. But I think like you're saying, he had just such a burst of creativity that he had to get it all on there. But that's the exception.
Yeah, there are exceptions, of course. Yeah, when you have something just have a tremendous amount of burst of creativity. But otherwise, I think the music industry as a whole and artists as a whole need to rethink this idea. That we will, we've got all this room here. It's like as if I wrote a letter to somebody. And I said, well, I've got all this infinite space on email. I've got to keep writing and fill up all this space.
Yeah.
Or I've got to fill up this entire notepad for this physical letter because there's all this room here.
Right.
No, you write what you really need to say and what's concise and what's important to say. And so, so tell us what you think.
Definitely.
Are albums too long? Do you think they should be shorter? Or do you totally disagree? Please tell us why. Tell us what you think. And so, anyways, till next time, I'm TJR. We'll look forward to hearing your thoughts on this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we love to read your comments and love the feedback. So, yeah, please speak your mind, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next episode, too.
Take care.